Greetings, everyone, and welcome to this video overview on Canvas, the learning management system at Wisconsin Lutheran College. This video is meant to be an overview of all the things that Canvas can do and really designed to get your feet wet and introduce you to the learning management system. With that in mind, I would encourage you to bookmark sites like the Instructure community. It's community.canvaslms.com. While there is a wealth of information there, I do admit that it can be a little bit overwhelming to try and take it all in at once. With that in mind, I have created other one-off videos that you can find at wlcidc.com. You can also find a link to both of those resources in the help menu directly within Canvas. So keeping that in mind, let's go through and take a look at some of the things that you can do with the learning management system at WLC. First of all, accessing the learning management system, you can do that either through the mywlc.edu portal, which is where you'll find the official registration documentation, the final grading, other things for faculty, staff, and students are located in that intranet. Or you can go directly to wlc.instructure.com in order to log in. Both logins will use the same username and password that you use for your WLC email. Once you are logged in, typically you're going to land on a dashboard. You can alter that a little bit. The dashboard really shows you courses that are current or upcoming. However, you do have the ability to personalize your dashboard in order to show any courses that you want. It's important to note that on the left side of the screen, you're going to see that green bar. That is a global navigation for Canvas. Couple of the important parts that are in there are links to your account, your dashboard, and the courses. So using those courses, you can see them over here on the left-hand side, is where you could go to see all of the courses that have been assigned to you. It's important to remember with your dashboard and with your courses that official courses that are part of the 4-credit student information system, which is known as Genzabar, those are created by the registrar. And so if this is your first time adjuncting or teaching at WLC, you may not have access to Canvas or to see any courses here until your account has been set up and you have been assigned a course by the registrar. If you ever have questions with that, you can always reach out to the registrar's office or to the director or department chair that you are working under in order to get that clarified. When you get into the courses for Canvas, there's a lot of ways that you could design a course. I usually tell people that the backbone of the Canvas learning management system is the modules. And you can see a little snippet of what a modules page looks like here on the left. It really is just a set of, if you want to think of them as folders that you can organize materials into. We have seen many different ways that these courses and these folders can be constructed. Some faculty members like to go week by week, and this makes a clear chronological flow, and you can put all of the assignments, all of the materials, all of the lecture notes, etc., attached to a module that is for each week. Some people will use units in order to just group all of the materials assignments by a single unit, and others will do this by topics or chapters, especially if they're following a textbook that they follow closely, like here is a module for chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3. You cannot nest modules inside of other modules, so each module is separate. But the module is what I consider to be the place that you are handing things out to students. There are some considerations that you can dive into a little bit more deeply on how to reduce the amount of scrolling that happens on a page or a module page, because if you think about a 16-week course with materials added each one, this can become a little overwhelming. So there are some options. I'll touch on them later, but I'd encourage you to look at some of the videos on Pages to get more information about that. But you can pretty much hand out or create anything you need right from the module page. Most of the things that you're going to be creating and giving to students is going to fall into probably 2 or 3 categories. You're going to be giving them their assignments, you're going to be giving them the materials used for their assignments, and you're also just going to be communicating with them about the course as it is. So I would recommend, again, the modules is where you're going to be creating a lot of these things. In this little picture, you can see that on this assignments module, there was a little plus when you're logged in as an instructor. Using that is where you can follow the drop down and the instructions to add assignments, quizzes, files, pages, discussions, or even some external things, or just a text header if you're just trying to organize it. Again, the activities are really these assignments, quizzes, and discussions. Those are the things that when you create them, you really have an option to add them to a gradebook. And when you have points assigned, they automatically get populated into that gradebook. So as you're creating your modules and you're laying things out and you're adding your assignments, you are actually beginning the process of building your gradebook at the same time. Some of the other things are just static. The page is a perfect example. If I have a lot of content that I want to share with students, like say 3 or 4 different files that I want to attach, maybe a YouTube video, etc. Instead of having individual links for all of those in the module, I will tend to create a page. Think of a page kind of like a static website. It's got an easy, what you see is what you get editor, where you can add files, you can add links, you can add pictures, almost like you're creating a presentation or a document. But again, once you start adding things to modules, you will also see that you have control over whether or not students can see them. And it's important to remember that if a module is published, like this green check mark, you can still have things unpublished that you're not ready to hand out to students. The opposite is not necessarily true. You cannot have a hidden module and then have viewable things inside of it, because if a student can't see this folder, they won't see anything that is inside of it. So the next thing I really want to dive into, though, is going to look very similar, especially in the little sheet that I have, and it is part of this navigation on the left. One of the things that is here is an assignments page. The assignments page looks a lot like a module. It has folders, or it has the ability to have folders, but really think of the assignments page as a filing cabinet. This is where all of those things that are getting graded are going to be stored so that you can organize them differently. If you are doing your modules by weeks, you might want to be grading with a different, or organizing the way that you grade in a different way. And that is really where the assignments page comes in. You can create groups for your assignments. You might group them by type, like quiz, test, essay, homework, etc. Or you can group them in any way that you want in order to create group weights. So if you wanted to say, I want an easy way to say all of my quizzes, regardless of how many points they are, all of my quizzes are 25% of the grade, you would be able to create a group and then use group weighting in order to accomplish that. But the assignments page is also a great place for you to go look and see an overview of all of the assignment due dates, as well as change those. You can even change them in bulk by moving them all 2 weeks into the future, or deleting all of them. It's really handy at the beginning of a semester, because many faculty members will copy a course from the previous semester. When they do that, all of the dates could be easily removed and then set up at one time using this. One of the other things that you'll find in the navigation is The grade book. All of the assignments that you've created, whether you create them in a module, those assignments all get stored in the assignments filing cabinet. But the gradebook is where you would see a more traditional view, almost like an Excel file of each of your students and the grades that they have received. The gradebook by default follows the same order that your assignment page has, but the gradebook is a great place to go in. You can jump in and actually edit grades just by typing in the percent or the letter grade if you have it set up that way. You can also use something called the speed grader. The speed grader is a really handy tool if you are asking students to submit files, whether that's submitting an Excel file, a PDF, a Word document, a PowerPoint, or even just typing text into Canvas. The speed grader will give you an option to see that content on the left side of your screen and then grade it on the right side of the screen. There's also options for adding rubrics to assignments in order to provide a little bit more clarity about what and how you're grading. But the gradebook is a pretty straightforward feature. You can click on any of the assignment names to go to the settings for that. You can also click on the three dots to see other options for hiding or entering standard grades. One of the ones that you see here is the roll call attendance. There's also an attendance feature in your course navigation that is built into Canvas. By default, the attendance is counted as part of the grade, but just because I see the attendance here does not mean that I'm actually using it in the grade calculation. Typically, when you click on the attendance page, you are greeted with what is called the roll call. It's a very simple roll call page. There's not a lot that you can do in here. There are no sessions. You simply go in when you have class, open up the roll call, you click on the students. Notice you can mark all of them present or unmark all of them. And you really only have three options: present, absent, or late. I tend to recommend for students that have an excused absence, not counting them as present and not necessarily counting them as absent just for your own record keeping. I tend to, if a student is not in class for an approved activity, I just do not take attendance for that student. So it doesn't count against them, doesn't count for them, just not there. There are plenty of people who will mark them present. My only concern with that is that they technically are not there. Others mark them absent, but they run into trouble if they are trying to use the attendance as part of their grade. You can also mark them tardy. That is the third option. And you have the ability to change how much a late mark counts against their grade. Typically, it would consider each attendance for each day 100% or 0%, and then it gives you a percentage in the grade book. So it's just telling you what percentage of the time they were present. I would strongly consider not counting attendance directly as part of your grade. Instead, you could create an assignment that is called participation or something else that includes not just the fact that they were there, but whatever type of assessment you're doing to say, hey, what counts as participation in this class? That way you have full control over it, and you can leave the attendance as being marked just for us and our record keeping. It's always important to note that it is required by law if a student fails a class that we know what the last date of attendance is. So taking attendance is a very important part of the class period. Canvas has a number of ways that you can communicate with students as well. The first one might not seem like communication, but I do think it is a very important part of each course, and that is the syllabus. There is a built-in syllabus page on Canvas. At the top of the syllabus page, if you were the instructor, you would see a little edit button where you can type in things like a description of the course or some highlights that you want to call out of your full syllabus. You'll notice here that I've also, when I was editing that page, I attached the actual document, my syllabus document, so that students could download it. That's the main part of the syllabus page, or the first part, but what I think is the most important part is this auto-generated list. The syllabus page will put in order by the dates that they are due all of the things that are being part of the student assessment. All of the assignments, all of the quizzes, they are going to show up on the left. What you can't see on this page is that each of those things would have the submission status, when it's due, the grade that that a student receives. So when a student looks at the syllabus page, it's almost like a master checklist that they can use in order to get a sense of where they are within the course. Some of the things that you can use Canvas for as well, and things that I recommend using, are things like the announcements. On the left, in your course navigation, you're going to see an announcements tab, and you can create an announcement which by default gets delivered to all of the students through Canvas as well as through their email. Now, each student, including each faculty member, really controls how these notifications get delivered. So there is a section in your account profile under notifications where you can control how and where things get delivered. Students cannot change their WLC email address, but they can add other email addresses or other modes of communication, including push notifications directly to the Canvas student app. So it's very helpful for me to go into a course and give an announcements. For example, we have a test coming up, or don't forget to do this, or we won't be meeting today. That message by default gets delivered to the students in whatever way they see fit. There are a lot of other notifications that Canvas does by default. When students are writing in a discussion post or they get feedback on an assignment, those things can be notifications that are delivered to them, which is why it's important for you and your students to go through and maybe set up the notifications you want and how frequently you want to get them. You can set them up from I want to be notified immediately to show me one summary at the end of the day to one summary at the end of the week. You also have an inbox, and the interesting thing about the inbox is that when a student goes and creates a message through Canvas, typically if you click on a student's name in Canvas, you'll have an option to send them a message. That message, unless the student has changed their settings, that message will be delivered to their email. They may reply to that message, or they may send you a message through Canvas that delivers to your email. You can reply directly in that email and it will be rerouted back through Canvas. It's really nice to initiate conversations through Canvas by clicking on students and messaging them, as well as encouraging your students to do that with you, because it's another layer of not only transparency, but record keeping. You can see all the messages that students have sent you regarding a course. I tend to use the announcements to make bulk messages, and the inbox, I don't typically go there to create the message. I will usually go into a course, click on the people tab, click on the student, send the message that way. But again, it's tied to your email, can also be tied to other modes of communication. Just a few miscellaneous things to think about with Canvas, and there is so much more that I could cover, but one of the important connections that many instructors in different disciplines use is linking publisher textbooks. A lot of publishers like Pearson and Cengage have tools that are what we call LTI tools. They're very easy to set up. There's a lot of tools that are already set up in Canvas that if you're using one of those publishers, you may find within Canvas. However, if you are using a textbook that has any kind of interactive software, one of the things I recommend doing is asking if they have an LTI integration. Their software may deliver the quizzes, it may deliver assignments and different ways for students to assess their work. And many of those LTI tools can be integrated directly into Canvas so that students don't have to learn a new login and that all of the grades can be passed right back into Canvas. So it's kind of like a single sign-on. If you need any LTI tools, it's important, contact the instructional design team. IT can also direct you, but there is a Canvas administrator on campus. Contacting them to work through any details is probably the quickest route. If you're unsure of who that is, talk with the registrar or with your department head. The other thing that's important is the Canvas calendar. You can add dates to a calendar for each course, keeping in mind that the students have a calendar for every course that gets created, and that puts together an automated to-do list for students of keeping them informed. So they have part of their dashboard, and yours as well, is kind of a to-do list that they can organize in different ways. So I really think it's important that in anything that you are doing, to consider the due dates and how you are assigning due dates and publishing things as early as possible, because the calendar in Canvas is a really great feature for students. I personally don't connect or don't necessarily even encourage people connecting that calendar to their personal calendars. But for students, it's usually the dashboard view in order to see what's going on. It's also helpful for you when you log into Canvas on that dashboard. It will typically say, here's some things that you need to grade, or here's some assignments that are coming up. So like I said at the beginning, this is just a brief overview of Canvas. There are a lot of opportunities and videos available, not just on the Instructure website or the WLCIDC.com website. Canvas has is one platform. There are no versions of Canvas. Every institution using Canvas is using the same platform. So there is a wealth of videos. If you're looking for how do I do this, simply doing a Google search and asking your question directly, YouTube, Reddit, many places have a lot of great resources for teaching you how to do it. Otherwise, there's always the official Canvas instructions. We also have a full 24/7 help desk that is run by Canvas that you can ask questions about. How do I? Like, I'm having trouble with this, or I can't upload this. There's a help menu right inside of Canvas that you can click on. You can call their number 24/7. You can chat with them, or you can simply send a message saying something isn't working. So please utilize that. Do not hesitate to reach out to the instructional design team or the Canvas administrator if you have any questions whatsoever.